Was first started hearing about Grand Funk Railroad. They had appeared at that Atlanta International Pop Festival and stole the show from none less than the likes of Jimi Hendrix and Led Zeppelin. And then there were all those great albums. As a matter of fact, 12 platinum, 15 gold albums and hit singles like We're an American Band and Locomotion. In 1977, Grand Funk Railroad broke up, although they had one reunion for at least one record, which we'll talk about. But, of course, each of the individual members went their separate ways. And Mark Farner, well, he's a founding member, guitarist, singer, and he's back with a new group called Vision. He's at the Trout tonight, but you'll still hear some of those great tunes that we associate with Grand Funk Railroad. Nice to have you with us this morning.
Thank you, Brian. Nice being here.
I mentioned that, I'll use the term, that big gig that you had at the Atlanta Pop Festival, but you told me something very interesting before the show. The group's very first performance was where?
In Buffalo, at the fair.
The Erie County
Fair.
1969.
That's right. It was our very first gig as Grand Funk.
Isn't that great?
Remember anything about that? I mean, did you have a good audience? Because at that time, if you were an unknown quantity, to get people in would be, I would think, unusual.
Well, I recall there were several hundred people there, and we did an unusual show because it was all our original material. And, it was the first trial for the stuff. We had recorded it already for like a demo tape. And it was, like I say, original stuff. And the first time it was tried on any audience was here in Buffalo. And it was really good. And we said, well, we're going to stay with it. We're not going to change anything. And so lo and behold, after the Atlanta Pop Festival gig, we signed with Capitol Records as a result of, the acceptance of that material.
Some people may remember one of the unique things about the marketing of the group at the time was this gigantic billboard in New York. How big was this thing? I don't think it's ever been duplicated.
It's one full city block in Times Square.
Yeah, and everybody who came to New York knew about you guys fast, right?
Yeah, we had it for a month. I think it was like $50,000 a month, the rent on the thing. And just before the rent was up, they had a strike, a painter strike, a billboard strike, and so that billboard stayed up on Times Square for an additional 3 months free.
Yeah, that's great.
It was great.
That's a streak of luck. Yeah. Why did the group break up in '77?
Well, after 7 years of touring and recording 2 albums a year virtually, we didn't have any time for our personal lives. And it was really getting to us. We were being irritable. It was getting to where it was a pain more than it was fun. And there's just no sense of being in rock and roll and traveling around if it's no fun. So we decided that we'd call it quits and that whenever we felt like it, we'd assemble again and go for it.
And you did it. What was it, 81? You did
In 81, we did an album. Grand Funk Lives, and in 82 we did Grand Funk What's Funk. And then after the death of our manager, Andy Cavalieri, it just kind of broke everything up. We still are at ends with the folks in New York City about getting the books back, and things were missing and lost. And
There's an interesting story, too, you told me earlier with this new, with Vision, I think the new collaboration is called, right? At the Trout tonight, and how you guys got together.
In Detroit, a friend of mine, Mylon Lefebvre, was playing the State Theater down there and called me up and said, hey, why don't you come on down and jam with us? We're playing the State Theater, and that's it's a good gig. And I told him, I'd come on down and do it with him. And when I showed up there, I heard Vision playing. I was standing in the dressing room talking with Mylon and the boys, and I heard these guys, and all of Mylon's musicians are going, oh, listen to the drummer, listen to this key. They knew all the moves, and I'm going, yeah, well, these guys are good guys, good studio cats. And I talked with Rocco, the guitar player from Vision, briefly at that show, and then 3 days later he called me at my home and said, hey, by the way, if you ever need a band or you want to go out and do some touring, we'll make ourselves available to you because, we really like you. And so that's how we got together. And then our first gig as Vision and Mark Farner united together was here in Buffalo.
Isn't that amazing? What a connection. Good morning, you're on the air.
Yes, hello. I'd like to ask, I'd like to make a point. When Mark Grand Funk Railroad was in its heyday back in the late 60s, early 70s, Grand Funk Railroad at the time took a very anti-drug stance. And I'd like to bring that out because I always admired their musical talent. and I always admired the fact that they were very anti-drug, and at a time when it wasn't so popular to be anti-drug.
Good point, and your message today is different, too, than those groups, isn't it?
Yes. We have a spiritual message. It's a positive rock, and a lot of people call it Christian rock or God rock, you know, out of Detroit, a little harder, you know, type of explanation of what it is. But what it is, actually, it's rock and roll, and the new stuff that I'm into is a positive message in a negative world. You see, you know, the young people especially are influenced by music, and I saw what a great influence that the Beatles were on the world, and myself included, and I always thought that in my songwriting and in the presentation of the group that I didn't want to be a negative influence or lead anybody astray, you know, by doing that.
And it's such a great opportunity for good because you do, I mean, you do have these young people in your grasp, really.
Yeah. Well, back in, I think it was in 72 or 73, we did the rehabilitation center in New York City. It's called Phoenix House, and we did a benefit show for them that was televised around on rock concert show. And the proceeds were all given to the Phoenix House, and they started like 7 different Phoenix houses from that. I'm very proud to be a part of that, and we've always, you know, taken a stand against hard drugs, and it doesn't, you know, for the most part, people like to know that you do something right, you know, even though temptation may come along and drag them astray or something, they will uplift and uphold what is right and what is righteous, you know, morally.
Good morning, you're on the air.
I'd just like to tell Mark how great he looks, and in our high school days, his songs were real popular, and out of all the rock stars, he looks great. And from those days, he's really doing good.
It's that clean living, right?
Yeah, so.
Yeah. Thanks for the call.
Was it ever unpopular, though, for you when you're in a world of during the period when you were popular, it was really a druggy culture type thing to be these clean guys?
Well, we weren't exactly these clean guys because we did our share of drinking, and we did even smoke pot, you know, back then. Nothing to where we never went on stoned. That was always our policy to, you know, be 100% there. And I always would look at these other bands that would just get loaded and try and go out there, and he'd stumble all over and fall off the stools, you know, the keyboard players. Boy, how influential is that, you know, and where is that? But we just had our own special thing, and amongst promoters, we always had a reputation for, you know, not having a big booze rider like everybody wanted 5 cases of Dom Perignon and 10 cases of Heineken, and, you know, for the crew and everybody, which, you know, that reputation accompanies a lot of rock bands today, and, you know, they got this exaggerated rider, you know, with all this stuff on it that...
Cindy and I have a deal like that. We go out, we insist on M&Ms, right?
M&Ms, right.
Yeah.
No green one. No green one.
Call it God Rock or whatever you like. You can hear it at the Trout tonight because Mark Farner and Vision.